Hello, this is Virtualis the Chess Noob, learning and having fun with chess. Today, I got to play a game where my opponent accepted the Vienna Gambit. Those who follow my channel or blog would know that the Vienna Gambit is my favourite opening to play in chess. It's a mistake to accept the Vienna Gambit, but declining the Gambit can only be done in one way, by playing d5, which enters the Vienna game main line. Although Stockfish only gives around a plus 0.5 advantage to white with the Vienna Gambit accepted, the Lichess community database suggests that white wins 2/3 of the time. In this game, we'll explore an interesting line that arose from the Vienna game accepted. Please enjoy! Alright, let's start with a quick look at the review. I played reasonably accurately in this game, my opponent somewhat less accurately, and you'll see there's that interesting dip there, isn't it? That blunder. We'll see that in context, but I did manage to sort of win the game pretty much from the beginning. Let's have a look now at the analysis. So the Vienna Gambit starts with e4, e5, knight c3, so that's the Vienna game. If opponent responds with knight f6, and now the Vienna Gambit. And accepting the Gambit is a mistake for white. The best move, as sort of mentioned, is immediately to play d4, which enters the Vienna game main line. However, my opponent accepted the Gambit, and immediately we've got some fun times. So, e5. And from this position, as I sort of mentioned before, white wins about 2/3 of the time, but only around sort of plus 0.5 in evaluation. And the point here is that knight has nowhere good to go. And in fact, the best move for white is in fact to undevelop the knight. Now, very often in this case where people are not familiar with the Vienna Gambit, and if they were familiar with the Vienna Gambit, they would have played something else anyway. A very natural move is queen e7, attempting to pin the pawn to the king, but that doesn't work because you can unpin with queen e2, plus 2.4 already. Now, what I've found now that I'm sort of at sort of almost 1300 sort of level, is that people in this position often will in fact retreat the knight. So knight g8, and in this position the best move is to develop the other knight, because there's an ever-present threat potentially for that king to go to h4, which comes with check, and that becomes a potential problem. So if that's not guarded by that knight, you could try to block with a pawn, but that pawn it just causes problems, and there's a major risk of losing pieces and the opponent even promoting their pawn to another queen. So you have to be careful of that. Opponent now plays knight c6, which is interesting. So more commonly in this game, and I think I've shown a couple of games like this before, opponent will play d6, and in this position you have a very winning idea with knight to d5, which threatens the queen and also attacks the c7 square, and often the opponent completely freaks out at this point because they'll try to move the queen, but then you can capture that pawn anyway, which comes with check, and it does all sorts of potential interesting things happen. They may try to protect, but then there's another discovered check with the queen and the king. Yeah, super winning trap. Now, in this game, the opponent played the knight first, and that actually makes some difference. Now, Stockfish didn't like it, but I actually think that's a pretty good move, because the potential here is that, the opponent can potentially fork my queen and my pawn on the c file, so c2, and that's actually a reasonably powerful counterattack, I think. So here I play a d4, extra defender to the pawn, also opening up the diagonal for the bishop. The opponent plays d6. So basically very similar to before, with the single exception that their knight is now on c6. And this is definitely a mistake, as you can see. So +7 now. And here I knew that the best move was to push my knight d5, setting that up. And here the opponent plays the best counter response, I think. So knight captures pawn on d4, again with that counter attack. And here I had quite a long think on what was the best move. So there seemed like an intrinsic logic. Okay, obviously I have to do something, otherwise my queen is potentially lost. And I thought, would it be okay just to trade queens? And I thought if I did that, I'm probably okay, but we're probably moving back to close to equality. I might be slightly ahead, and certainly it's sort of the very winning position I'm in is lost. I thought that was definitely a possibility. Now, Stockfish, you'll see that Stockfish thinks that knight captures knight is the best move. So straight up considered to be a hanging knight. My problem was what was I going to do with the queen coming to h4 with check, because block. And then they would just simply capture back, and then there's a potential another discovered check. So I just couldn't see how I was going to navigate that. So I actually dismissed the idea of that move out of hand. Now I eventually played queen e4, which Stockfish hates, apparently just back to equality. Now my logic here is that still protects that knight. If they capture like that, I'm still protecting that pawn. So I thought here I was potentially okay. Now the interesting thing here is Stockfish does reckon that knight captures knight is best. So I was actually going to have a look to see what actually happens here. So let's say knight captures knight, and the queen now does what I think that would logically do as a human, which was to take it with check. And here you would have to block. Clearly, this would be a good move. Capturing back with the pawn, and here capturing now with a discovered check. King would go into this square, and now potentially knight to d7. So if with a I suppose a fork of the queen and the pawn, but here the pawn can potentially move straight forward with a fork and also discover check. Opponent, I can capture the queen, but now opponent captures a pawn with promotion to queen. So I thought that there was a chance that they will actually get a queen somewhere down, and I'll lose pieces. And here, so lost both pawns, queen on the back rank. Absolutely terrifying looking position, and yet amazingly it's still practically plus 10 for what, plus 9 here, and opponent up 3 points of material. So this is why Stockfish reckoned that capture, knight captures knight, was best. But I just simply could not. No, to be honest, if I played that, I'm undoubtedly will stuff something up, I think anyway. And so I would probably be in a losing position, because I think you have to play probably quite accurately to not screw up having a queen, maybe even two queens down in your territory. So I eventually played that move because my thinking here is the opponent is actually trying to not lose their queen, because they could just simply accept losing the queen and we just end up trading queens. And if we do that, I think we end up reasonably equal, actually. So they want to avoid trading queens. So I want to hold onto that pressure along that file. And I was correct. So the opponent cracked first, moved their queen out of the way, and that was a serious blunder, because I know in this setup, basically this queen is basically lost. There is nothing that can be done for this queen, because I'll actually get rid of the lines, so that slows things up a little bit, because now I've got knight captures c7 with check, natural move, captures, pawn captures pawn with discovered check, simultaneously attacking that queen. The opponent has no choice. Either the queen moves back here and then it gets captured, or moves the king or blocks the check and the queen is captured. So very, very happy I managed to pull that off. They developed the bishop, which is fine. Capture the queen. And now we sort of play some sort of shuffling moves. So clearly here, I knew I was completely winning, plus 6 points of material, basically up up a queen. I think traded a knight basically for a queen. So I'm doing very, very well, and pretty much it's just not blundering the position. So captured that hanging pawn. Opponent develops the other knight. Obviously now I need to move my queen. I thought let's move the queen all the way out, because otherwise any other move I could see led to another knight move and attack on the queen with tempo. So queen there, pinning that knight. So Stockfish like that, so that's good. They sort of develop, so push up their knight a little bit further, attacking, and I thought, yeah, that's okay. It's basically defended anyway. Here I opted to long castle, bringing sort of a rook into the picture as well. They capture the bishop. Here, I'm happy to trade pieces. But if you look at Stockfish, Stockfish doesn't even want to take back that knight right away. In fact, prefers to develop that bishop straight up. Now, I suppose I played with less strategic insight to that side. I just thought, yep, let's just trade, capture the knight while I can. They develop the other bishop. I now sort of bring the other bishop out, again, pinning the knight again, aiming for a trade. So there we go. So trying to trade pieces. King move to, to block. And here it's a matter of trying to shuffle, and they make some good maneuvers with the bishop with an attack on the queen. See, yep, some more bishop moves, shuffle, and I move again. Here I move down here, and here I saw a potential trap. So I thought they were probably going to capture that pawn, and then I'll be able to block that bishop in with the knight. And then I saw a strategy where I can force some back rank sort of moves. There we go. And here we go. So they're forced now to capture. And here, now I actually didn't need to do this, but I thought this was simpler. Basically forcing the trade, and now I end up with queen and knight versus bishop, completely winning now. They make a move, I make my final move, and then for some reason, they didn't play another move. So almost 11 minutes left. They just let the clock run out, which was slightly annoying actually. But then I saw that, they're living in Ukraine, so maybe they've got some other priorities at the moment that suddenly came up. But good game, GG. In the opening, Stockfish Analysis identified an absolutely mad line that he considered best, one that was completely inhuman and fearless. Although the rating remained +10 for white, black, for quite a few moves, is up 3 points of material and has their queen sitting on white's back rank. During the game, I had actually dismissed this line almost immediately, as it looked like a terrifying blunder. The move I ended up playing was a blunder according to the robot, but was ultimately the correct move psychologically against a human. I hope you found this video interesting, and thanks for watching.